The sound of metal scraping on the floor echoed through the dim workshop. Ethan looked up from his half-repaired engine and froze. A girl stood in the doorway. Not just any girl, an alien. Her skin was pale, her eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. One arm was gone, replaced by a jagged stump of broken cybernetics. Her left leg dragged uselessly behind her, sparking with each step. She didn't speak. She just stared at him, breathing hard, like every second was a fight to stay standing. Then, voices outside. Heavy boots, getting closer. She limped toward him and whispered, her voice trembling but urgent, "Please, don't let them find me." And in that moment, Ethan knew, fixing her was not going to be a simple repair. It was going to change everything. The workshop was quiet except for the soft hum of an old repair drone. Ethan worked slowly, tightening the last bolt on a worn-out engine. Outside, the spaceport was alive with noise, but in here, the world felt far away. He liked it that way. Machines didn't lie. They didn't break your trust unless someone had already broken them first. A faint sound made him pause. It wasn't the creak of a tool or the drip of a leaking pipe. It was softer, uneven, almost like footsteps. He turned his head, frowning. No one ever came in this late. From the shadows near the doorway, she appeared. At first, Ethan thought it was a trick of the light, but then his eyes adjusted. She wasn't human. Her skin was pale with a faint glow, as if light lived under the surface. Her eyes, large and bright, reflected the small flicker of his workshop lamp. One arm hung at her side, but it was not whole. It ended in a broken frame of metal and wires. Her left leg dragged behind her, the joints bent wrong, sparking softly with every step. She moved slowly, leaning on the wall for support. Ethan stood, unsure whether to move closer or stay back. She didn't speak. Her gaze was fixed on him. Not desperate, but searching. It was the kind of look that made him feel like she was measuring his soul. The soft thud of boots echoed from the corridor outside. More than one pair. The sound grew louder. She turned her head toward the noise, then looked back at him, her eyes sharp with fear. She stepped forward, almost stumbling, and in a voice so quiet he almost missed it, she whispered, "Please don't let them find me." Ethan's instincts told him to ask questions, to figure out what was going on, but there wasn't time. Whoever was out there was coming closer, and she didn't look like she could run. He crossed the workshop quickly and pulled her behind a tall shelf of scrap metal. The smell of oil and metal filled the air as they crouched in the shadows. She kept her gaze on the door, breathing carefully as if afraid even that could give her away. The voices were clearer now, low, quick, and speaking in a language Ethan didn't understand. The footsteps stopped right outside. His heart pounded. He glanced at her, and she shook her head slightly, warning him not to make a sound. After a long moment, the steps moved on, fading into the distance. Ethan exhaled slowly. She didn't. Her shoulders stayed tense, like she was ready to run if she had to. When the silence returned, Ethan spoke softly. "You're hurt. Sit down before you fall." She hesitated, then nodded. He led her to a workbench, and she lowered herself carefully onto the seat. Up close, he could see just how bad the damage was. The metal of her limbs was cracked, the wiring frayed, and strange blue liquid traced thin lines down her arm like it was leaking from inside. "What happened?" he asked. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw something beyond the fear, exhaustion. "They did not want me to leave," she said simply. "Who's they?" She looked away. "It doesn't matter. You can't get involved. I only need a place to rest for a moment." Ethan studied her. She was clearly more than she seemed. The design of her cybernetics was unlike anything he'd seen, advanced, elegant, and alien. Whoever had made them had done so with care. But whoever had damaged them had done it without mercy. "You won't last long like this," he said. "Your systems are failing." She glanced at the sparking wires on her leg and gave a small, tired smile. "I know." Something in her tone made him pause. It wasn't self-pity. It was acceptance, as if she had already decided she wouldn't make it. Ethan didn't like that. "I can fix you," he said before he even thought about it. Her gaze flicked back to him. A mix of surprise and something else, hope, maybe, though she hid it well. Why? Because you asked me not to let them find you. That means you want to keep going. For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she gave the smallest nod. Ethan gathered tools, his mind already working through the repairs. He had no manual for alien tech, but he understood machines, and she was more than just a machine. But she was still something he could help. As he worked, she watched him silently, her eyes following every movement. The air between them was quiet but heavy, like they were both waiting for something neither could name. Somewhere deep down, Ethan knew this was no simple repair job. There was a story behind her broken limbs, a danger in the footsteps that had passed his door, and a reason she had chosen his workshop to walk into. And whatever that reason was, it was about to pull him into a world he had never imagined. Ethan worked in silence, his hands moving with steady focus as he examined the strange alloy of her damaged arm. The metal was light, but stronger than anything human engineers had ever made. Tiny channels ran through it like veins, carrying that faint blue fluid that gave off a soft glow under the lamp. He had no tools made for this kind of work, but he adapted, shaping and adjusting his instruments until they fit. She sat still, watching him. Her breathing was calm now, though her eyes still searched the corners of the room like she expected someone to burst in at any moment. Ethan could tell she wasn't used to trusting anyone. "What's your name?" he asked quietly, not looking up from the joint he was repairing. There was a small pause before she answered. "Lyra." He nodded slightly. "I'm Ethan." Another pause. "You fix ships and anything else that breaks." He gave a faint smile, though she didn't return it. Lyra looked at the tools spread across the bench. "You've never worked on my kind before." "No," Ethan admitted, "but every design has a logic. I just have to find it." She seemed to consider that, then turned her gaze to the far wall. For a long while she said nothing, and only the soft click of tools filled the air. Ethan didn't push her. Sometimes silence told more than words. He moved to her leg next, checking the damaged servo. The wiring was tangled, and one of the main power conduits had been severed clean. The precision of the damage made him wonder. This wasn't an accident. Someone had known exactly where to hit to make her collapse. "Lyra, this damage," he began. But she cut him off. "It's not from a fall." Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "It was done so I couldn't walk, so I couldn't leave." Ethan stopped working for a second. "Why would anyone want to keep you here?" Her eyes shifted to him, sharp and guarded. "Because I carry something they want." He studied her face, but she didn't offer more. "Is it dangerous?" he asked. "It's not meant to be," she said, "but in the wrong hands, it could change many things." Ethan tightened a bolt on the leg joint, his mind turning over her words. He didn't know if she meant technology, information, or something else entirely, but he could feel it. Whatever it was, it mattered. Hours passed as he worked. Outside, the noise of the spaceport faded to quiet, leaving only the distant hum of passing ships. The air smelled faintly of warm metal and oil. Lyra sat with her eyes closed now, not asleep, but resting in the first moment of calm she'd probably had in days. Ethan connected a temporary power line to her arm, and the faint glow in the metal brightened. Her fingers twitched slightly. He glanced at her, but her eyes were still closed. "You're going to need more than a few repairs," he said. "Some of these parts are custom. I'll have to make them from scratch." Her eyes opened slowly. "Can you?" "I can try." She studied him for a moment. "Why help me, Ethan? You don't know me. You don't know what following me might bring." He kept working, not meeting her gaze. "I don't need to know everything. I just know you walked in here asking for help. And if I turned you away, I'd have to live with that." Lyra's expression softened, just slightly. She seemed like someone who had heard far more refusals than offers of help. A faint sound interrupted the quiet, the low hum of a scanner passing outside the wall. Lyra stiffened. Ethan put down his tool and moved to the small window near the back of the workshop. Through the narrow gap, he saw the figures in dark suits, moving slowly, scanning each door they passed. "They're still looking for you," Ethan said quietly. "They won't stop," she replied. "Not until they find me." He stepped back from the window. "Then we make sure they don't." for the first time since she had walked in. A small trace of trust appeared in her eyes. She didn't say anything more, but she didn't need to. Ethan returned to his work, his mindset. Whatever she was hiding, whoever was chasing her, he was in this now, and somehow, he knew this was only the beginning. Morning light crept through the narrow panels above the workshop, casting soft golden lines across the floor. The air smelled faintly of metal dust and warm wiring. Ethan had been working most of the night, stopping only once to make sure the doors were locked and the shutters drawn. Lyra sat at the edge of the workbench, her repaired leg resting on a padded crate. She flexed it gently, the movement still slow but smoother than before. Her arm, however, was another matter. The broken frame was partly reinforced, but some parts were beyond his stockpile of materials. Ethan had a list in his head of what he needed, but finding alien-grade components without drawing attention would be difficult. "You work without sleeping?" she asked quietly, breaking the silence. Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes machines don't wait for rest." She tilted her head slightly. "You speak as if I am just a machine. That's not what I meant," he said, pausing in his work. "You're more than wires and metal, but your body needs repairs. Same as any craft that's been damaged." Lyra studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You're not afraid to look at me?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Should I be? Others usually are," she replied. "Some can't stand to see what's under the surface. They look away." He didn't respond to that, only returned to his work, adjusting the alignment of her remaining arm. After a while, curiosity got the better of him. "You said you carry something they want. Is it built into you?" Her gaze dropped to the floor. "Yes, I was part of a special unit, not by choice. They gave me enhancements for speed, strength, and her storage." "Storage?" She hesitated, then reached for a small port hidden at her collarbone. A soft glow pulsed under the skin. "Information, encrypted data. I don't know its full contents, but I know it's valuable enough that they would keep me forever to control it." Ethan leaned back, taking in her words. "So they didn't just hurt you. They wanted to make sure you couldn't run with what's inside you." "Yes," she said simply. He glanced at the tools in his hands, realizing the repairs were not just about restoring her mobility. They were about giving her a chance to choose her own path again. While he worked, he noticed something unusual. In her systems, every time he connected his scanner, faint streams of code appeared, not random, but patterned. He didn't understand the language, but the sequences repeated like a message waiting to be read. "What is this?" he asked, showing her the display. Lyra leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "I've never seen that before. It must have been hidden deep. Maybe even from me." Ethan adjusted the scanner, and the pattern shifted into what looked like a star. Map incomplete, but clear enough to recognize routes between distant systems. She looked stunned. "These are not just any places. They are restricted, worlds locked away for centuries. No one outside the old council should know about them." The weight of what she carried became clear. If this map fell into the wrong hands, Ethan began, it could bring war. Lyra finished softly. A quiet settled between them, the kind that came when both people understood the stakes without needing to speak them. Ethan set the scanner aside and tightened the new joint on her leg. All the more reason to finish these repairs quickly. She gave him a faint look, as if trying to decide whether to believe he could truly help. "You've already done more than most would." Before Ethan could respond, a faint vibration passed through the floor, not footsteps, but the hum of a transport ship docking close to the workshop. Lyra's eyes shifted toward the door. "They might be here," she murmured. Ethan glanced at the sealed shutters, his mind already moving through possibilities. "Then we stay ahead of them. Once your arm is functional, we move." For the first time since meeting her, she gave a small, determined nod. "And when we move, we don't stop until I'm free." Ethan met her gaze and saw something new in it. Not just fear, but resolve. It was a spark he intended to protect, no matter what it took. The workshop felt different that morning, as if the air itself carried a quiet urgency. Ethan had cleared the main table, setting out a careful arrangement of tools and parts. The last pieces for Lyra's arm lay in a small cloth bundle. Custom-shaped alloy segments he had stayed up all night to make by hand. They weren't perfect, but they would hold. Lyra sat nearby, her repaired leg crossed over the other, watching him work. Her gaze was steady, yet her hands rested in her lap like she was holding herself still on purpose. She seemed more alert than before, listening to every sound inside and outside the workshop. Ethan slid one of the alloy plates into position, fastening it to the frame of her arm. As he worked, the scanner beside him gave a soft chime. A display lit up with the same strange pattern he had seen earlier, the hidden star map. This time, more of it had filled in, as though the repairs were unlocking something inside her. Lyra leaned forward, her eyes catching the faint light. That wasn't there yesterday. It's growing, Ethan said, studying the map. Every time I reconnect a part of your system, more of it appears. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Then it means my body was not just hiding the data, it was protecting it. Only full function will reveal the rest. Ethan frowned slightly. Which also means the ones after you know that. They might not want you repaired. They might be waiting until you're barely functional so they can take you without unlocking the map themselves. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. And once they take it, they'll erase what's left of me. Ethan didn't like the quiet certainty in her voice. That's not going to happen for a while. They didn't speak. He kept working, attaching the fine wiring inside her arm. She sat still, her gaze following his movements as if committing every step to memory. The sound of his tools filled the room in a steady rhythm. Halfway through, Ethan noticed something on the new alloy plates, faint markings he hadn't put there. They looked almost like writing, small etched lines that shimmered faintly when they caught the light. Did these symbols mean anything to you? He asked, showing her. Her eyes widened slightly. Those are old, very old, from before my people joined the common worlds. I don't know what they say, but I've seen them in ancient archives. They're warnings that made Ethan pause. Warnings about what? I can't say for sure, but the archives spoke of places not meant to be found again. He glanced at the star map still glowing on the scanner, like the places in this data. She nodded slowly. By the time he finished installing the last plate, the scanner pulsed again, unlocking yet another piece of the map. It was almost whole now, though gaps still remained. Before either of them could study it further, a faint tone came from the outer door. The sound of the security alert Ethan had set the night before. Someone was near. Lyra tensed immediately. How close? Ethan checked the small panel on the wall. Close enough to know which door is mine. They moved quickly. Ethan covered the scanner with a piece of cloth and swept the tools aside. Lyra shifted off the bench, testing her new arm. The joints moved smoothly, though she still favored her right side. You might have to use it sooner than expected, he said. Her eyes met his, calm but intent. If we leave, we must take the map. It's not safe here anymore. Ethan nodded. He had already decided the same, but as he glanced at the glowing fragments of the map, he knew they weren't just leaving with information. They were leaving with something that could change far more than their own futures outside. The faint hum of a scanner passed over the door again. The sound lingered, as if whoever held it wasn't moving on this time. Lyra's gaze shifted to him, and Ethan could see it. She was ready to run, but also ready for whatever came next. He took a quiet breath. When I open that back door, we don't stop. She gave a short, certain nod. Then let's not wait for them to knock. Cool morning air rushed in as Ethan pushed open the narrow rear door of the workshop. It led to an alley that wound like a hidden thread through the industrial corridor, where the smell of oil and distant steam mixed in the air. The street ahead was quiet, but too quiet for comfort. Lyra stepped out after him, moving carefully at first. As she tested her repaired arm in motion, it flexed with surprising precision, the new joints responding almost like her original ones. Ethan carried a small satchel slung over his shoulder. Inside, the scanner rested between layers of cloth, still holding the nearly complete star map. They kept to the shadows, weaving between stacks of unused cargo crates and tall fences. The city's upper levels were just visible far above, glowing faintly through the morning haze. Lyra's eyes kept scanning the rooftops, while Ethan watched the alleys ahead. Neither spoke for several minutes, listening instead to the faint hum of the city waking up. When they reached a wider street, Ethan paused. "There's a place to districts over," he said quietly. "A friend's repair bay, secure. No one will ask questions." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "You trust this friend enough to know he won't sell us out for a handful of credits," Ethan replied. "But we can't go there directly. Too easy to follow." They turned down another narrow lane, one lined with old metal panels and flickering wall lights. As they walked, Lyra noticed something odd. Her internal systems were running warmer, as if the repairs had awakened processes she hadn't felt in years. Tiny pulses of light danced briefly under her skin, almost invisible, but she could sense them. She stopped for a moment. "Ethan, the map isn't just in me, it's active." He turned, frowning. "Active how?" "It's reaching out, like it's searching for something," she said, her voice quiet but certain. "The repairs must have completed a link." Ethan's thoughts moved quickly. If it's sending a signal, someone else might be able to detect it. Her gaze was steady. "Then we have less time than we thought." They continued on, but now their pace quickened. The hum of the city seemed louder, the air sharper. A small drone passed overhead, its single eye sweeping the street. They stepped beneath a weathered awning until it moved on. As they reached the edge of the district, Ethan spotted a transport hub ahead. Rows of cargo haulers and skimmer bikes, their owners not yet awake for the day's work. One hauler, a boxy model with faded paint, sat with its loading ramp down. "That one's old, but it'll run," Ethan murmured. They approached quietly, Ethan checking the control panel. With a few quick adjustments, the hauler's low engines hummed to life. Lyra stepped inside, looking out through the small viewport as the city's narrow streets slid past. Inside the cockpit, Ethan set the hauler to manual navigation. "Once we're out of this sector, we can head toward the old orbital elevator. My friend's bay is near there." Lyra didn't answer immediately. Her gaze had fixed on the scanner in his bag. It was glowing faintly, brighter than before, and now a low, rhythmic tone pulsed from it. She spoke slowly. "Ethan, the last part of the map is trying to unlock." His hands tightened slightly on the controls. "And if it does, I think we'll know where it leads," she said softly. But so will anyone listening. They both understood what that meant. The moment the map completed, the chase would change. The hauler moved smoothly into a higher transit lane, the city falling away behind them. But even here, Ethan kept glancing at the scanners on the console, watching for signs of pursuit. Lyra rested her repaired arm against the seat, her other hand lightly over the satchel, as if she could shield what it carried. They didn't know if safety was ahead or if they were driving straight toward the very place their pursuers wanted them to go. But for the moment, they had momentum, and momentum was better than standing still. The hauler's quiet hum filled the small cabin as the city's towers faded into the mist behind them. Morning light spilled through the narrow viewport, catching on the edges of Lyra's repaired arm, making the alloy seem almost alive. She sat beside Ethan, her gaze distant, as if listening to something far away. For several minutes, neither spoke. The steady rhythm of the engine was almost calming, but underneath it was the faint, insistent beeping from the satchel. The star map was still pulsing, brighter now, as though it sensed they were drawing closer to its destination. Ethan adjusted the hauler's controls, guiding it toward the broad curve of the old transit bridge. Beyond it, the land gave way to open stretches of forgotten docking yards, silent except for the occasional creak of old metal in the wind. "You've gone quiet," Ethan said softly. Lyra's eyes shifted toward him. "I can feel directions, not in my thoughts, but here." She tapped her temple lightly, like the map is speaking without words. He glanced at her, then at the satchel. "And where is it leading us?" Her lips pressed together. "Somewhere. High, not in this city." Ethan nodded slightly, his mind already turning over the possibilities. "Could be the elevator," he said. "If your map is old, maybe it points to something above the orbital ring." Lyra didn't answer, but the way her gaze drifted upward told him she was considering the same thought. The hauler rolled across the bridge, its tires humming over the metal grating. As they neared the far end, a faint shimmer caught Ethan's eye, not light, but a distortion in the air, as if the space ahead was bending ever so slightly. Lyra noticed it too. "That's not natural." "Cloak field," Ethan murmured. "Somebody's using high-grade tech to hide something." They slowed as they passed, pretending not to notice. But both of them felt it, the invisible presence watching from behind that shimmering veil. Neither turned their head, yet both understood that whatever was hidden there had marked their passing. Once they were out of range, Ethan exhaled slowly. "We can't linger near the bridge." Whoever that was, they weren't looking for just anyone. They pushed onward, the city now far behind, replaced by stretches of rusted loading cranes and half-buried shipping containers. The road narrowed, forcing the hauler through winding lanes where shadows clung to the edges. Lyra's arm shifted again, the alloy plates catching the light. She studied the movement thoughtfully. "When you built this arm, you shaped the joints by hand." "Yes," Ethan nodded without looking at her. "Didn't trust the printers for something that precise." "Then you should know, your work carries an echo of the old symbols," she said quietly. "You didn't copy them, but your shapes match their rhythm. That might be why the map is completing so fast." Ethan gave a short laugh under his breath. "So I accidentally tuned into alien history while fixing you." She almost smiled. "Or maybe the map knew who to guide me toward." Before he could answer, the satchel gave a single long tone, deeper than before. Lyra pulled it open, revealing the scanner's display. The last fragments of the star pattern slid into place, forming a complete map. At its center, a single point pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan slowed the hauler. "There it is." Lyra stared at the glowing point, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's the place." Outside the viewport, the horizon showed the distant silhouette of the orbital elevator, a thin line stretching up into the clouds, disappearing into the sky. The point on the map pulsed in perfect rhythm with the sight ahead. Ethan tightened his grip on the controls. "Then that's where we're going." Neither of them noticed. At first, the faint glimmer in the sky behind them, the waylight, bent around a shape that shouldn't have been there, following at a measured distance.